Siege of Orleans KvK. We're in the middle of a big one in 2359. And we got a whole bunch of kingdoms that are getting into Siege of Orleans. We're going to do a refresher. We're going to do a guide for the auxiliary skills because we've had a little bit of that in Supreme Strife. I haven't played Orleans in a long time, and we need to update this to get everybody ready to fight next week in this massive Orleans KvK that we're in, and all the different KvKs with Orleans. Everybody needs an idea of what to do and how to do it. So stick around as we get you set up to go fight with auxiliary skills. Hey everybody, I'm your boy War Daddy Chatsky. I put out videos all the time, and I love doing this content. I love bringing the energy, and if you would be so kind, if you like the video, please throw a thumbs up on it. Give it a like, helps out the channel a ton. And speaking of the channel, if you're not subscribed, it doesn't cost you anything, guys. Like, just hit the subscribe button. Hit that bell if you want any alerts of the content we put out. If you want to join my Discord, the link is down in the description. That's where my community has really grown. We're approaching 8,000 members on my Discord. Holy jeez, we almost got 60,000 on the YouTube channel with subscribers. Let's go. And this was a video everybody said, Chatsky, we have no idea what we're running. Here's our auxiliary skills. And for anybody that needs a refresher, this is how auxiliary skills work in Siege of Orleans. When you do bastions, when you do different things and different events and things like that within the Siege of Orleans, you get this currency. This currency is called your writs, right? Writs. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. You can bank up to 10,000 of these things, and then you can't get any more. Well, you're constantly doing bastions every day, so you're constantly running these up. So the best thing to do is once you hit 10,000, it doesn't matter who you put it on. Just start putting people's skills on. Start putting people's skills on commanders that you might not even use, but it keeps your writs regenerating, and then you can sell those skills back, so it's kind of like a bank. So that's the first thing that we got to think about, is that you never want this to get over 10,000. You want to be sure to buy skills, even if you're not going to use them, because it's kind of like a bank. You can purchase this one for 1,000, you can sell it back for 600, so you kind of have a bank of writs that you can use. So we're going to go through this, and we're going to give you different auxiliary skills to use for the field. We're going to go through Cav Wedge. We're going to go through Cav Delta. We're going to go through your infantry wedge on your skill damage infantry march, your infantry smite march. Then we're going to go through some archer situations. We're going to give you different ideas of how to lay this out for each one of the marches you want to run, because some of the different skills from commanders like Mehmed, this is his second skill, 20% more skill damage. Well, that's awesome for Huo. If I'm going to run Huo with Belly or Huo with Joan, or somehow going to run Huo with Arthur, you want to run up that skill damage. So we'll talk about all these different things. And with that, because I'm a Cav guy and that's how I run, let's talk about that first, okay? This is Huo. Okay, regardless of if you do run, like I said, Huo or Joan or Huo or Belly or Huo or Arthur, however you run it, let's talk about these, okay? Because when it comes to some of these that you get into, you want to talk about the different slots for the different auxiliary skills. You can see here that I've chosen Mehmed. There's a couple different that you can use, but I really want to ramp up the skill damage. Now, some of you might say, hey, my Huo is too squishy. I need more defense. I need more ways to protect myself. And there's other things that you can use for that. But the one that's probably most common for Huo is gonna be Mehmed. When you click on this, you can kind of see all the different commanders. Now, not all these are unlocked, but you can see all the different commanders that you can use, okay? And so when you come into these things and you try to figure out exactly what to use, you can roll through the skills and see, okay? So if you're not using, like I'm not using Nevsky, right? I could use this one eventually when it unlocks, but I don't want to do attack and march speed for the second skill because I want to save Nevsky's fourth skill when it comes to his skill damage, okay? Because I want to put as much skill damage as I can on Huo. In addition to this, I think Mehmed is probably your best bet. There's other ones like William that's really, really good. Let's just go look at some of the commander's second skills and make this really, really easy, okay? You come over here, we're just looking at second skills, right? We talked about Nevsky's. It brings attack, it brings march speed, and you also get some health. So if you want your Huo to be more equipped to be tankier, Mehmed is always really, really good outside of Alliance territory. However, this is one of the best skills in the game. This is what has helped Nevsky stay somewhat relative for so long in the game, is because he runs the skill damage bonus up to 60% after a skill damage, which is massive, okay? So I want to save that one. I don't want to use his second one, because once you use a commander's second skill, you can't use their third or fourth skill, right? If you use their second one, you can't use their third or fourth one. So I'm not going to use Nevsky in the field. I'm probably going to save that fourth one for him. I had talked about Mehmed. There are other combinations here as well. You can talk about William's second skill. There's a cav attack bonus. There's a damage bonus. I love all damage. However, I've got something else I want to do for William that's going to blow y'all's mind, and that will come later. There's other ones like Philip. You know, when you talk about leadership commanders, you can use Philip, but I'm probably going to use Philip in the field. But if you're not, you can get 35% cavalry attack and 20% more march speed. So you can use Philip as well. What other ones do I have? Do I even have XY on this account? I don't even think I do. You could use XY's second skill, okay? You get 40% attack and 15% march speed, okay? And you have a chance to get another 25% march speed for 3 seconds when you take a basic attack. So there's all kinds of different ways to do that. But for me and for Huo, I am going to use my boy Mehmed. Mehmed has got a great skill damage bonus with an attack bonus. I love this. I think it's great for Huo. You're laying down as much skill damage as you can, and it works out really, really well. Okay, so that's what I'm going to use for my first slot for your cav skill damage march. I'm using Huo. I'm going to use Mehmed. Now we'll come into the third skill. What are we going to use for the third skill when it comes to Mehmed? Okay, there's still multiple things you can use. I had mentioned William, but I'm going to save my William for my Delta. Okay, I'm not going to use him for my skill damage cav march. I'm going to use it for Delta. Okay, and so what does that leave us with? Well, there's always an option for Philip if you're not going to use him in the field. Now, this is where Philip starts getting really good with his skills, because his third skill literally gives you 30% more damage, okay? And for rallies and garrisons, that's going to be off the charts. I'm not going to talk about rally and garrisons in this video. This is just for field, so you can kind of figure that out. There's another one, obviously, with Nevsky. You can use his third skill. It's got a 20% defense bonus. It's got a 10% all damage bonus, and you take 5% less damage. Now, this is when you're surrounding a target. Well, in your field, you're going to be surrounding every target you hit, because you're not just going to go fight with one march. And so, but again, I'm going to save my Nevsky for this one, okay? And so, with that, what else do we have? Well, we have a couple others, okay? Let me pull the fat man down here out of retirement. Where is my boy Khan? There he is. And here is his second skill. I don't even have it maxed, okay? Or his third skill. I don't even have any of it. But his third skill is really potent at the beginning of fights, okay? If you have more than 70% units remaining, you do 10% more damage on the first tier, but you do 30% more damage if you have that at tier 5, at level 5. And so if I use this, I'm gonna go reset my skills and try to get this to level 5. Okay, so that's a good way to be able to use that for your third skill. All right, so there's other ones that you can think about here as well. You've got a Saladin situation. Where is my boy Saladin? He's around here somewhere. Saladin. When it comes to Saladin, there he is. his third skill is one of the best in the game, especially in Heroic Anthem KvKs. Okay, his support skill is really good for Heroic Anthem KvKs because he's going to mitigate skill damage 30%. Okay, and he's going to do a counterattack damage reduction. That we always use this in Heroic Anthem KvKs for our rallies and garrisons because taking less skill damage is massive. Well, you got Chen running all over the field. You got Huos in the field. You got Zuges and Ragnars in the field. So in the field, this is very, very potent, and this is probably what I would use, either this or Khan's third skill as well. So I've got Mehmed's second skill, and I've got Khan and Saladin's third skill that I will use for my Huo, my skill damage Cav March. Okay, let's go to the fourth skill. The fourth skill gets really, really interesting. There's a couple of different things you can use here, but let me find my boy Hannibal, okay? This is one of the kind of weird skills in the game, but you get 10% unit cap. You bring a lot more units to the fight. Whenever the troop uses an active skill outside of Alliance territory, it gains a 50% bonus to damage dealt for 3 seconds. This is great. Okay, you get a 3 second bonus to all damage dealt. It's 15%, so you can put that on a Huo running with Joan, or a Huo running with Belly, or a Huo running with Arthur, and you can get this 15% all damage bonus to hit when you hit, okay? There's another one that's also really, really good, but we might hold on to that, and I'll explain that in a few, because our boy down here, YSG, might have the most broken force skill in the game. This is 50% more skill damage, okay? Which is great for a Cav March, but I'm gonna save that for Chen. But if you're not running Chen, or if you want to run something else on the force skill for Chen, you can run YSG for your big Huo March, okay? And so you not only have YSG with Huo, you also have, let's find her. You also have Tommy, okay? You can put the stacks of poison on the target, okay? This is always good for any skill damage commander to put poison stacks on the target, okay? And so from there, once you reach the poison stacks to 15, okay, you're gonna reset whenever you gain a 16th stack. So you can run this, and you can put it really on any skill damage march, whether it's Ragnar, Chen, Zuge, or for Cavs, it's Huo, and it is really, really good. Another one that we can talk about is Belly Prime. If you're not going to use Belly Prime in the field, then you can use this. It's a 10% bonus to skill damage, okay? And then it brings another 30% bonus to skill damage, or I'm sorry, it's a 10% bonus to skill damage reduction, which is kind of tanky. But then if this commander's troop is attacking another troop on the map and the target troop has less than 80% units remaining, which is most of the time, you're going to deal 30% more skill damage. So this is really, really good if you're not using Belly Prime in the field. And so from that standpoint, it is really, really good to use and understand how Belly Prime's fourth skill works. All right, there's some other ones here. Let me come over here and pull this up. I'm gonna grab infantry because there's one we gotta talk about. And his name is Leonidas. All right, this is his fourth skill. If this commander's troop is on the map, whenever it launches a basic attack, it gives you a 25% chance to gain a 10% bonus to damage dealt for 5 seconds, but this can stack up to 4 times, and its duration resets whenever it gains another stack. This is super potent. Now, it might even be better for a Delta combo situation, but that's also something you can put on your Huo, and you've got a few other ones here too. We had talked about Hannibal's third skill, but his fourth skill is actually really good as well. I believe his fourth skill comes with a couple of different things here. Where is he at? His fourth skill obviously has the unit cap bonus, all right, and then it does the all damage of 15% for 3 seconds when you use an active skill outside of Alliance territory. So that's also really, really good that we talked about when it came to Hannibal. We've got Tariq, you got Nebu, you got all kinds here, okay? Let me come over here to Tariq and look at that. Let's see, where's he at? Where's my boy Tariq at? I thought I had him max. Yeah, I did. Okay, his fourth skill. This commander troops deal 15% more damage, just straight up. It's great. Whenever their troop launches a basic attack, you have a 10% chance to reduce the target's rage by 80 per second for 3 seconds. So there's a rage mitigation that goes with that. So Taric is really, really good to put behind Huo or any other skill damage March, or really any March in general. So there's all kinds of different ways to run this. For me personally, if I'm gonna run Huo with Joan, then I'm probably gonna try to use the Belly Prime skill, okay? But I'm giving you all these different options to run, all right? If I can get this Belly Prime skill up to tier 5 on its 4th skill, it does 30% more skill damage, takes 10% skill damage reduction. It is really, really good. And so that's kind of how I've got that worked out. And that's what's best for your Huo with whoever you're running it with, okay? If you're running Huo with Joan, you got Mehmed. All right, you've got Mehmed, you've got all different kinds that you can use. We talked about Genghis Khan, we talked about Ragnar Prime, we talked about some of these other ones with Mehmed that could be really, really good. Okay, so my 3rd skill, I'm probably going to use Genghis Khan, which is the 30% damage when you have troops over 70%. That's the one I like the best. On my 4th skill, I probably will use Nevsky. That's probably the best one for me. Easy, set it and forget it, 60% skill damage, and you're doing work, okay? So there's your Huo. There's your Cav skill damage March and the support skills we talked about. Now, let's move on to what we're gonna do with our Delta, okay? It stays pretty simple because what I'm gonna do with Delta, I'm gonna run Arthur with Achilles when he comes out, okay? Where's he at? Did they even show him in here? I don't even think they show where you can put an auxiliary skill on him, but I'm gonna run him with Achilles in this KvK. Hopefully we'll have him by then and it'll work out really good. The first skill I'm gonna put on him is Alex. In fact, I'm gonna buy that right now and I'm gonna put it on here. This is Alex's 2nd skill, okay? So the 2nd skill slot is the instant proc that Alex does is 1700 damage, and it only has a cooldown of 3 seconds, okay? We have seen what this does when you pair Alex with Luce, because Luce does an extra combo attack. He does like an extra basic attack, and it fires off so much. You've had people put artifacts on Alex and run him behind Arthur in artifact KvKs. It's busted good. So I'm gonna take all the best of that, and I'm gonna take our boy Alex here, and I am gonna put him behind our boy Arthur, okay? And then on the 3rd skill, let's go to that one. On the 3rd skill, that's when I'm gonna use our boy William, okay? So now the reason why William is still relevant in the game today is because you can put him behind Arthur and you can fire off this instant proc more often, okay? If you're surrounding a target, you're gonna do 1500 damage factor. So you got 1700 coming from Alex, you're gonna have 1500 coming from William, and it's only got a 5-second cooldown, okay? So there's multiple different ways that you can run this, and it works out really, really well. Now, when you get into his 4th skill, all right, there's a myriad of things that you can do, and Butterfly will enhance this. But at the 4th skill, because basically I'm saying it for combo, the only thing you need to use is this right here. All right, that's like the only thing that you need to use is this right here when it comes to the 3rd skill. All right, now you could look at Attila, you could look at some other different ones, but when it comes to combo, that's what I want to use. All right, on the 3rd skill for our boy Arthur here when it comes to the auxiliary skill. So I'm gonna put, let's see, I'm gonna put Alex here, I'm gonna put William here. Well then, who am I gonna put on the 4th? Okay, well there's a couple of different variations that you could look at here. I don't have Bert very far along here. Let me get my calves set up. Where is he? There he is. There's our buddy. I don't have Bert's 4th skill, but he does some really interesting things. Whenever you deal combo damage, you have a 20% chance. All right, and it's if you have this expertise, which not a lot of people do, but if you do, you got a 40% chance to increase the rage requirement of the target skill by 200. If the target is already affected by the rage requirement, then this skill will drain 10 rage from them. Actually, it's going to be 20 rage from them. Okay, so that's actually a cool little feature that happens when it comes to Bert. All right, now also you have Attila in this. Let me show you. Attila's 4th skill is pretty cracked. All right, this thing fires off, and you really don't need combo or butterfly to fire this off. It's just really, really good to give all damage. All right, and so that might be something we consider for another March, but Attila's also really, really good to put behind Arthur with Achilles or any kind of combo situation, because you're proccing up combo attacks all the time. And like we talked about, if I'm proccing the third skill of William behind my Arthur Achilles, and I'm proccing the second skill of Alex when I'm running Arthur Achilles, then why not consider getting an enhancement on those procs and getting this for 2 seconds? It's got a 10-second cooldown. It's not ideal, but it can work out really, really well, okay? The other thing to look for, but I'm gonna probably save this for Smite. Let me come over here and look at this. We're gonna take this, and we're gonna go to epics. What I would probably look at, this is going to be used somewhere. Either you can use this for your combo damage commanders, that basically your march for combo damage when it comes to Arthur and Achilles, or you can run this for Smite. This is just 25% straight normal damage. It's awesome. It is perpetual. It's great. It's awesome. Another thing you could look for, and this is probably what I'm going to end up running, because I have our boy Herman expertise, okay, but I'm not going to use him. I only run one Archer March in this KvK, and I'm planning on running Chin with Zuge, and I'll kind of explain that in a second. However, this effect works really, really well with Butterfly. Okay, the stacks go up higher, and you hit this thing more often. Whenever you launch a basic attack, you have a 10% chance to deal direct damage to up to 3 nearby enemy troops with a damage factor of 200. Every additional damage target gets mitigated by 50%. The troops hit with this damage are inflicted 2 stacks of poison. It's only got a 3-second cooldown. So you go run this with your combo commanders and Butterfly. Oh baby. So that's what I'm gonna run when it comes to Arthur. I'm gonna run, let's see here. This is diabolical. I'm gonna run my Alex, and I'm gonna do the instant proc he does. I'm gonna run William for my third, and I'm gonna run Herman for my fourth. It's instant procs everywhere, going off all the time everywhere, laying down stacks, doing all those things from Herman's fourth skill, laying down more damage on the instant proc from William, and then laying down more damage from Alex. Okay, and so from there, that is gonna be a diabolical march to have Arthur with Alex. I'm going to run Arthur with Achilles. I'm going to have Alex second skill. I'm going to have William third skill, and I am going to have Herman fourth skill. All right, so that kind of sums it up for your cavalry. So we got skill damage, which we talked about with Huo. We've got Arthur and the Delta combo, however you're going to run him. We gave you the options there, and now we're going to go to our Smite setup. So for your BQ March and Smite, okay, you can already see here, I have Pyrrhus. This is a wonderful skill, his second skill for Smite. This commander's infantry troops gain 10% health, 15% march speed, which is fine, okay, but outside of Alliance territory, you're gonna do 20% more normal damage. 20% more normal damage is absolutely wonderful. Okay, so that Pyrrhus is great for Smite. All right, he's wonderful to be able to run that, to be able to run it for Smite. There's some other ones here as well that are really, really good. Let's go look at some second skills from some other commanders. You look at Philip. Philip has got 35% defense bonus and 20% march speed, but I'm not going to use Philip. Okay, I'm not going to mess with him. Who else do we have? Well, if I'm not garrisoning with a Charles Martel, this is one of the biggest stat sticks in the game. 20% defense, 20% health, 20% march speed for your infantry. So whether you use that second skill for BQ and Luce, or you use that second skill for another infantry march, it could be Ragnar, it could be William Wallace and CJ, whatever. If you run more than one infantry march, you're going to want to use this. This is a great stat stick. and a great thing to use. Okay, so those are kind of your two best. You like Pyrrhus and you like Martel. Those are your two best second skills that you want to use when it comes to, as we see Pyrrhus here, when it comes to your Smite March, which will take this, and then maybe your skill damage march. But there's some other things you could do with skill damage too. Let's go to the third skill that we want to run for BQ and Luce, okay? This gets really, really interesting because I'm already gonna use Alex. So who am I gonna use on my third skill? Okay, we've already talked about Philip. You can use Philip's 30% all damage for your BQ Luce. That's wonderful. Honestly, that is great. There's also Ragnar Prime, but I'm going to use Ragnar Prime in the field. You've got a situation maybe with Guan, okay? Oh my gosh, are we going to talk about Guan here? Where is my Guan? I'm not running him in the field. However, I can get a 30% attack bonus and I can get a 15% march speed bonus. I don't care too much about the healing factor, but it does kind of play a little bit of a role. You get a little bit of healing, but that's one that you could also use for that third skill. But the unsung hero of my third skill is our boy Sargon, okay? You got a 15% march speed bonus and you deal 10% more damage when attacking any troop on the map. And whenever their troop launches a basic attack, you have a 10% chance to gain a 30% bonus to damage dealt for 3 seconds, cooldown of 8 seconds, okay? This is really, really good with BQ and Luce. Luce gives you more times to proc this, okay? And so it works out really well. So now we have an instant proc situation with Sargon's third skill. That's what I love to run with my BQ and Luce. All right, having 10% all damage is great for infantry. Having 15% march speed is great, but then being able to apply a 30% damage, bonus damage dealt for 3 seconds, and I can get that to fire off more often with my Luce, it is really, really good. I love it, okay? And so from there, we got to find a fourth skill, all right? This is where you infantry players, you guys get crazy, okay? So we're on BQ and Luce, and we're trying to find another situation that we can run our fourth skill. It's really simple. It's really easy. Where is this? Is it integration or leadership? I can't remember which one this is. I think it's integration. It's going to be Joan. This is what you're going to run. Okay. This is what I'm going to run. We talked about the fourth skill that we're going to run with the combo damage dealer. That's going to be my Arthur and Achilles. I'm going to put Herman Prime behind that. And I'm going to put Joan nice and easy, 25% normal damage for BQ and Luce. That's a 25% all damage. It is absolutely wonderful how you can do that. So that's what I want to use. But there's also other options for that too when it comes to some of this stuff for infantry. Because as we talked about with our boy Leonidas, this is really, really good. You're stacking up the all damage. You can run that on BQ Luce as well. And you've also got some other options with like William Wallace. Okay, this is one of those skills. If you're not going to run Wallace in the field, a smite damage bonus of 10% and a normal damage bonus of 10%, it's damn near 20% more all damage all the time. So this is also another one that you could run as well. But for me, to keep things simple and easy, I'm going to run our girl, Joan, Epic Joan with the 25% normal damage. You didn't think you'd need her, did you? But you need her because this is absolutely wonderful. Your BQ with Luce March. Okay, so now that we got the Smite March out of the way for infantry, let's talk about our boy Ragnar. What are we going to do with this guy? If I'm going to run Ragnar in the field, then I'm going to run him either with Philip or I'm going to run him with Scipio. How am I going to run him? So in looking at this, what we want to do is say, okay, well, if I'm going to run the Alex instant proc on if I'm going to run the Alex instant proc on my combo march, and then I'm going to run the Pyrrhus, which you can see that I can't use. Where's he at? Oh, he's here. I'm already using here. If I'm going to run Pyrrhus on my BQ, then the best thing to do, it's really pretty simple. It's running Martel. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and put it on him now. Go ahead and spin the Ritz on it. It's a stat stick. It works out really well. 60% of stats. You honestly can't get any better. And for Ragnar, makes him a little bit more tankier. You running that guy with CPO, great. If you're running him with Philip, that's great. You're getting a ton of march speed out of that. It works out really, really well. Some of the other options that you have is to maybe run William Wallace, okay? Getting 10% health, 30% attack, and 20% march speed. So you could do that as well on your Ragnar. There are a couple different options, but Charles Martel, really the easiest one there. The only other one that might be kind of okay is running this guy in his second. You get 30% health, okay, 15% march speed, okay, and then it's got some rally attack situation going on with the damage you deal, but you could also think about Pakal as well. But there might be some Pakal later on if you want to do some crazy funny business. But for me, that's what you're going to run with your Ragnar right off the rip. Run Charles Martel, more march speed, defense and health. Amazing, okay? Let's get into the third situation. We talked about this. I love Sargon's third skill, but we're using that for BQ. Where is our boy Sargon? He's around here somewhere. I love his third skill, but we really want to use that for BQ. I don't want to use that for Ragnar. What else can we run? Okay, when you're talking about infantry wedge, that's when you can look at that Guan situation. All right, there's a couple different things that you can do with that. Where's Guan at? You've got the 30% attack, 15% march speed, and you got a healing factor. So now, as far as your stat sticks go, if you run it with the Martel second skill, we're talking about your Ragnar march, then you're going to run up the infantry attack bonus to 30%. You're going to run up your defense and health to 20% apiece, and then you're going to run your infantry march speed up to 35%. Oh my gosh. Okay, well now that can kind of work. And so that is an interesting segment of what you want to do. Now, I'm going to run Philip behind my Ragnar, but if you don't run Philip behind your Ragnar, you could easily just go put the 30% all damage bonus on your Ragnar with CPO. Okay, do a bunch of damage with that march. All right, and so there's multiple things you can do with that. But the third skill gives you some options between Sargon. If you use Sargon for BQ and Wallace, then you can use Guan. If you actually want to run Ragnar with CPO and you're not using our boy Philip here at all in your murder ball, then you can run Philip's third skill. So that's kind of your Ragnar situation. So now let's talk about the fourth skill for Ragnar. Here's our boy Ragnar. We're using Charles Martel. I'll probably end up using Guan, because since I'm going to run it with Philip, or I can use Philip if I'm going to run it with CPO. Whatever works out best, that's kind of how I'm going to look at it. But now let's talk about his fourth skill, because this is where it gets a little bit weird. Check out his fourth skill here. This commander's troop deals 10% more damage straight up. Whenever their troop launches a basic attack against a target that is currently taking damage over time, it has a 100% chance to silence that for 2 seconds. Okay. Now, if I'm using Ragnar with CPO, you're doing damage over time, additional damage over time. Okay. And so from there, as you can see here, CPO has this set here, but then he's got an additional damage factor over time. So now we're putting a silence in the field, which is really, really good. It's something that can be done in the field pretty easily. And so from there, you're doing additional damage here every second for the next 2 seconds. You're doing additional damage with your CPO every second for the next, 3 seconds? Okay, and then you can use your Flavius on the third skill. Where is Flavius at? Where's this dude at? Okay, then you can use Flavius on the fourth skill that's going to silence that. 100% probability to silence the target for 2 seconds. Okay, so that's one you've got to think about. Another one like we talked about is Tommy. Okay, Tommy's always good. I would rather use Tommy maybe for my Huo March, but you could also use Tommy when it comes to, let me pull this down. She's down here somewhere. You could also use Tommy and her stacks. Where's she at? Where is Tommy? You could also use Tommy and her stacks for that fourth skill. Okay, so anything skill damage, this is good to use for. Run for your fourth skill. You can do that. We've also talked about Belly Prime. If you're not going to use him on his fourth skill, he does the skill damage reduction and a big bonus to skill damage. We talked about Leo Leonidas obviously is up here as well, and so Leo can give the stacks of the all damage here, which is really, really good. You have Hannibal, Tariq, and some others, but that's kind of what you're looking at when it comes to your Ragnar in the field, okay? So now that we've done the two cavalry marches, whether it's infantry or whether it's wedge or combo, we've done the infantry ones when it comes to wedge and smite. Now we're gonna get on to the archers, because this is where it gets cooking, y'all. This is really where it gets cooking, all right? So let's come over here to Chin, shall we? When you look at the fat man here and you're just wanting to run one archer march, okay, this is a little bit different. If you just want to run one archer march, there are multiple ways you can do this, okay? I would run Chin with Zuge, okay, because part of the reason why I like YSG is because of YSG's 4 skill. But wait a minute, what if I can just use YSG's 4 skill for Chin? And I can put it on Chin Zuge. We did this in Supreme Strife. It makes Chin Zuge totally broken. Absolutely broken. And so I'm going to save that 4 skill of YSG and I'm going to run Chin with Zuge. Well, if I do that, then what else can I run? Well, let's look at it here, because if you look at our archers, all right, you've got Edward, okay, and his second skill has a 30% health bonus. Oh my gosh, with 30% march speed. I'm going to put this on Chin. Are you being serious? Chin is going to go zoom zoom, plus it's going to make him even tankier than what he is. Are you kidding me? What? Okay, so you can use Edward when it comes to Chin with Zuge, or even Chin with YSG, okay? Who else can you use? You can use Shajar, 35% health with 20% march speed. Oh my gosh, that is just crazy, crazy health for your archer marches. It's crazy, okay? But what about Thutmose? Okay, we're not using him. Well, you can get a 15% bonus to attack. Your march speed bonus is 10%, but when you're outside of Alliance territory, you have a 15% all damage. Okay, that's great. Okay, for Chin, that might be what you want, especially if you're trying to divide up your archers. I'm basically giving this to you. You have all these different types. You have Shajar, okay? You've got Edward with 30% and 30%, and then you have Thutmose. So if you're running 2 archer marches, it's all the same. It's all skill damage. You can mix and match and run those 3 the best way you want. Okay, Thutmose, Edward, and Shajar. All right, but don't forget our boy Herman down here. Hey, yo, Herman? What is it? Prime Herman? What does this do? 10% attack bonus, 10% march speed. Okay, not great. But what about Prime Herman? All right. So now Prime Herman, you look at this, that's a 20% attack bonus, 20% defense, 15% health. So there's your 4th one that you can run. Excuse me. But I would like to run 2 archer marches in the field. So I will probably use Herman, and then you go back to what you have with Edward, Thutmose, and Shajar. So depending on how you want to do that, you can do it a bunch of different ways, okay? Now let's talk about the 3rd skill for Chin. All right, so you talk about the 3rd skill with archers. Of course, you could go with the proverbial Philip if you're not using Philip, and you can get the all damage of 30%. Okay, you can use that. That's just fine. But what else do you have here? Okay, let's look at our archer commanders and see. Oh, I've got Ramsey over here. And if you run Ramsey, now this is an account I haven't put anything in archers, but if you've got Ramsey's 3rd skill here up to 5, you're going to take 30% less skill damage. That is crazy. That's like Saladin levels. Okay, whenever their troop is hit with a basic attack, all right, you have a 10% chance to gain 40% attack and 40% march speed for 3 seconds. All right, so that is a very tanky, very good way. You could go put this on like a Zuge and Herman march if you're running Chin with YSG. You could do that a couple of different ways. All right, so that is really, really good. We had talked about Saladin, but I'm going to use Saladin over there for cavalry. But Saladin is pretty much universal. You can use Saladin wherever you want, all right, because it's just a straight skill damage reduction, and you can do the same thing when it comes to the archers, okay, because it's universal troop types. It does not matter. All right, so we come back over here to Chen. We're looking at this for the archers. That's also a good one to use for your third skill, is that Saladin situation. What about El Cid? I'm not using El Cid. Okay, what do we have El Cid here as? This commander's archer units gain 20% defense and 15% march speed. Okay, decent stat stick. You can put that on your third skill if you have to, if you don't have any other ways to do that. Okay, so that's one other way that you could run that third skill for your archers. We talked about Philip, we talked about Ramses, we talked about Saladin, we talked about El Cid. So you have all kinds of different options, okay? What does Kuso do here, by the way? 15% attack, 15% defense. Okay, nothing crazy. What does Emotep do here? He does a health bonus of 7% when you're sitting. Okay, not great. Wait a minute, what about Boudica? Skill damage reduction, 25%. Let's go. Boudica is also another one that you can use. Normal damage bonus chance and normal damage bonus chance. You can run up the normal damage pretty high, so you could also use that when it comes to your third skill of your archer marches. You just got to look around, play around with it, and see. Okay, now let's go to the fourth skill. If I'm running one archer march and I'm running Chen with Zuge, then I run the fourth skill right here. That you can't beat that, like at all. You can't beat that. So you run YSG with the fourth skill and you cook. Also, if you're not going to run Tommy with other combinations, you can run this with Chen and Zuge, or you can run this Chen, Zuge, Herman with a Tommy stack. Okay, that's where it's probably best. Chen Zuge or Chen YSG and Zuge Herman, and then you put this on your Zuge Herman. Multiple different ways to run that. That is crazy. Okay, we talked about the belly skill that I'll probably use for cavalry, but you can also put the Belisarius skill on here for the fourth skill when you take 10% less skill damage, and if you're hitting troops under 80% units remaining, you're going to deal 30% more skill damage. So that works for Chen, that works for Zuge Herman, it works for whoever you want to run as your archers, okay? And so from there, there's all kinds of other ways you can increase your all damage from Leo. We've talked about, where's that at? When it comes to Leo here, let's click these off. Let's go to Leo. We've talked about this a couple different times, but you get into his fourth skill, okay? Whenever you launch any kind of basic attack, 25% chance to gain a 10% bonus to damage dealt for 5 seconds, stack up to 4 times, okay? Which is wonderful. All right, the other one that you can look at, obviously, we talked about Tariq a little bit. We talked about Hannibal. Hannibal's got a weird force skill that works really, really well. Troop cap and all damage bonus when you're outside of Alliance territory. And then also you have Tariq. Let me see here. Tariq, does not have to be infantry. So you can run that Tariq force skill for your archers up, 50% all damage. All right, and you have a 10% chance to reduce the target's rage by 80 per second for 3 seconds. That's 240 rage mitigation. That's really, really good. All right, and lastly, for you archer players, I will say this. Where's my boy Nebu? Don't sleep too much on Nebu, okay? Nebu's force skill is really, really interesting when we look at it. This commander troop deals 15% more damage, and whenever their troop launches a basic attack, it has a 10% chance to reduce the target's rage by 100. And the cooldown there is only 3 seconds. So you could really be doing some gag stuff with Nebu as well. So that's what you have. And then finally, last but not least, I need to bring this up as we end archers and all the skills for archers. But one I want to bring up that you could run really anywhere is our boy Mina and the Warlord skill, okay? Whenever this commander troop launches a basic attack, it has a 10% chance to increase the target's damage received by 30%. I want to run that on somebody, because the target's damage received means the target is going to take 30% more damage from all sources for 3 seconds. It's only got a 5-second cooldown. So you can run this anywhere. You can run it behind your Huo as a force skill. You can run it behind your Arthur with Causative or Butterfly in the Delta formation. You could run that and get it to proc more. You can run this behind your Smite marches. You could run this behind your Archer marches. Does not matter. So that might be the honorable mention. The Warlord force skill. I got a funny story about that. I'll never forget fighting in a heroic anthem KvK in KvK 4. We were fighting in our campmates that we had. The king over there didn't care about the Mina Bastion because what was his quote? Let me see here. Nobody cares, Chatsky, nobody cares about a 4-year-old commander's stupid skill. And I was like, it's the Warlord skill, you idiot. We have to have that for our support skills for our rallies. And he was so stupid he didn't realize that. But even today, after years and years of having Mina, this 4 skill is cracked. It is great. It's great to have in auxiliaries when you're running Orleans. I even put it on my marches in Supreme Strife, so you can run this anywhere you want. So hopefully that gives everybody a well-rounded view when it comes to Orleans and how you want to set up your marches. A lot of people have been asking. I went through Huo and the skill damage calves. I went through the infantry smite. I went through the Delta combo calves. I went through the infantry wedge and skill damage. I went through both skill damage pairs of the archers. You can take your pick, skip around to this video where you want to see the different types of support skills to use. And more importantly, what I'm more proud of is the diabolical skills I'm going to use here with Alex, with William, and with Herman Prime. That's what I'm going to do. Don't tell anybody. But you go on Arthur with that, it's instant proc red numbers everywhere. If you enjoyed this video, please throw a thumbs up on here. Give it a like. If you haven't subscribed, consider doing so. Hit that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything. And I love putting out this kind of content. If you have anything you want to add to this or ask me questions, go down into the comment section. I love engaging there. I love going back and forth with people who have questions or who want to try to argue or debate some of these different things. It's really, really good. And I also learn a lot there because there's some stuff I don't think about. So with that, we hope everybody has a great day and good luck to everybody fighting this Orleans KvK. We will see you, broskies.